1 minute you can start so that we can save our time.
Sure.
Rameshwar, once it starts, you may start your proceeding, and you allow also who are joining at any time. So you just give entry to those who join.
Okay, sir.
Okay? Okay. Nitish, you can start now.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for allowing me to start this webinar. Hello and welcome on one-day national webinar on interdisciplinarity in higher education under New Education Policy 2020, role of lifelong learning. We all know that new education policy has the different thrust area. Under that, interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity is the one of the thrust area where university is brainstorming to implement their interdisciplinarity in higher education. For today's webinar, we have several guest speakers and distinguished guests from diverse background, and I would like to welcome on the behalf of Department of Adult Continuing Education Extension, University of Delhi, to all the participants, guests, and the speakers. And now, as you know, the interdisciplinarity and the lifelong learning has the very much correlation. Lifelong learning tells us how to improvise ourselves and make it more profitable for the society and the economy. It is one who is working on the basis of the outcome oriented, and it is one who tells us that how one should consistently upgrade themselves to be a lifelong learner. I would like to welcome all the participants on this occasion, and I hope that this webinar will certainly give us the chance to understand that what is the meaning of the interdisciplinarity in higher education and how lifelong learning could be the vital in the implementation of interdisciplinarity. Before proceeding this webinar, I would like to hand over my mic to our head of the department, Professor Rajesh sir, for further proceeding. Sir, please, over to you. Please unmute, sir. Please unmute, sir.
Hello. Hello.
It is.
Thank you, Nitish. Thank you, Nitish. We are here today for a discussion on a very, very important aspect of new education policy. And we have a galaxy of speakers who will be speaking today on this occasion under the chairmanship of very veteran honorable Professor N.K. Ambust. Professor N.K. Ambust, as you know, needs no introduction. He remained Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Chairman, National Institute of Open Schooling, Professor NCRT, and held several national, international level committees, and also expert on the tribal education and general lot many issues and concerns of teacher education. So under the chairmanship today, his chairmanship, we have a discussion, and Professor Ravi Chandran has already joined. He is a professor. He remained dean of Jamia Hamdard University. He happened to be expert of management research methodology, and he is giving regular inputs to our students on research methodology and several issues of action research. Dr. Geeta Misra has already joined. She is associate professor in MIT University, and she is a regular visitor to our department on several issues, research methodology, new education policy, and on gender issue also. One young professor also today will be speaking, Dr. Gibson Burgess, who is a fellow currently in the Institute of Lifelong Learning, University of Delhi, a professor, assistant professor in Mahatma Gandhi University in some prominent college there, and he is well acquainted to our several Institute of Lifelong Learning, Delhi School of Economics, programs of management, and we are fortunate that they will be providing their input, and we will be discussing on a very important aspect. So before handing it over for the broader policy by Professor N.K. Ambast, on my behalf, I will have only very few sentences. I am currently heading a department which has piloted 5-year course of Delhi School of Journalism and separately running in University of Delhi. The department has also not only piloted, currently providing its committee of courses for the department for a course which is known as cyber security and law. Now one can understand the linkages of Delhi School of Journalism, cyber security and law, and the courses that department were running, like modern mathematics for parents, legal literacy, science and sports journalism, counseling and guidance. So this department or platform, not from today, but from the time of Professor S.C. Vatia, remain interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. So today we are not discussing about the Department of Adult Continuing Education or Lifelong Learning. Today we are discussing on interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity under the new education policy 2020. What the few things that I wish to say, that we call it the new education policy is not, our Prime Minister said, we will be job creators, not job seekers, and it will have the endeavor of interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity education with the element of choice at our end. Students will select the stream and the purpose of major and minor courses. Curricular and co-curricular activities will be there, and the gap between the generalist and the specialist will not be there, kind of a thing. So how all these things can be met at our end, and what is envisaged in the new education policy by the government and by our honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, which emphasizes on multidisciplinarity, and which said that within 2035, 50% of the population will be in higher education, and opportunities for vocational skill education and competency, how that can be met. Here we are today to discuss that. So to give a broader perspective, I take the opportunity to invite our veteran Professor N.K. Ambast. Sir, thank you and welcome on this platform. Professor N.K. Ambast, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
you are
afternoon,
audible.
everybody. Welcome to this very important seminar or webinar on an issue that has got a contemporary significance in the light of emerging technologies, in the light of emerging needs, and in the light of emerging society during the pandemic and after the pandemic. If you look at, let me come to the topic straight away. If you look at the paragraph number 21.1, the National Education Policy says the abilities to attain foundational literacy, and goes on to say lifelong learning programs. Now, what is this foundational literacy? Let me be very clear. With the emerging technologies and the kind of changes that is happening, the adult education, the basic career of adult education was literacy in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even in 80s. Some Sampurna Saksharta program, etc., were all dependent on reading and writing, understanding the script or the language which was in that particular context. Now, another kind of script, another kind of communication has emerged, and that is e-language. And as you go by with the further development of artificial intelligence, the total concept of written material written and deciphering material may undergo a sea change. So what's happening is that some emerging areas to reorient the adult population, because we are talking about adult education, adult population, to reorient them to the emerging language science, emerging technologies is necessary. Therefore, a reorientation of the entire adult education program, changing from literacy as a carrier of information to e-learning, will become necessary. I am not saying that reading, writing will not be necessary. I am saying something additional will be necessary. So if you remember that during the Green Revolution, the Kisan Saksharta Yojana, the Department of Agriculture Extension used to produce materials in Unnat Bij, Unnat Khaj, etc., Khad and other things. But they were taking help of the Department of Adult Education to transform that information into the language or in the language and sentences, small sentences, etc., from Department of Adult Education. So they were working in collaboration so that the information is transferred through written material in language which is intelligible to the population. Now take this particular incident and you will find that there is a change. Now there is a Kisan portal, and every information with regard to Bij, with regard to Khad, with regard to irrigation, with regard to weeding, etc., is being transferred on this Kisan portal directly to the user. And therefore, there is no immediate need of material or Unnat Khaj or Unnat Bij or Unnat insecticide, etc., etc. So the medium of carrier of information, which was the print material earlier, has changed. Now it is audio and video material which is being transferred through Kisan portal. Now, what is the change in the nature of learning that on the part of the learner? The learner has to get himself educated in how to use this. So, what is to be communicated is one aspect, and how it is to be accessed is another aspect. So, the content of your adult education program is undergoing a kind of change. That is one. The second thing is, when you see education in the holistic manner, then education is of two kinds. One is education for living, the other education is education for life. Education for living is concerned with providing you the information, the capacity, the skill to go into the society and be socially useful, productive citizen, so that you can also sustain yourself, your family, your society, earn, contribute to economy, contribute to the national income, and all sorts of things. So this is the education for living, which is mainly the domain of the formal formal system, formal college system, formal. But when you suppose when you retire and your income, etc., subsistence is assured, then there is a need for you to pursue your own vocation, your own inclination. They are the education for life, which improves the quality of your life, which improves the I would say a satisfaction, emotional satisfaction, or ideational, the things that you couldn't do while you were earning for the family, for the society, working for the government, and etc. etc. Now you are free. So you want to utilize your time, which gives you satisfaction. It may be singing, it may be yoga, it may be helping people, social service, whatever it is. Now, this is one area which comes under lifelong education. During my stay for a few weeks in Japan under a UNESCO program, I visited a Asahi center, and I found that elderly people, very elderly people, were pursuing their own vocations in that center. It was a lifelong learning center. Somebody was learning Ikebana, arrangement of the flowers. Somebody was learning Marathi. Somebody was learning Hindi. Somebody was learning the Greek. Somebody was. So this was their inner. This was for their inner satisfaction or their mission in life, which was different from education for living. For education for living, they had to follow a certain kind of straight jacket, that you have to be scientist, you have to be mathematician, you have to be a professor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a judge, or whatever it is. So you have to go into that straight jacket. But when you are free, then you have your own choice, you can tailor your own requirement, and you can then seek redressal for that requirement. This is what lifelong education is. So adult education program as such has to cater to two different sectors. One sector is which is related to upgrading your skill to which may be classed under education for living. The upgrading your skill in order to be more socially useful, productive citizen of society. This is one sector under which you can come Atmanirbhar Bharat skills. You can take upgradation to vocational programs. You can take upgradation to improving your other socio-economic needs, etc., etc. These are institutionalized and leading to a certain kind of certification which gives you credibility for getting into a job or getting into a profession or becoming self-employed and improving. So these are formal sectors. This is one aspect of adult education for those who have either missed the opportunities or who want to upgrade their skills or understanding or knowledge in order to be a better producer or in order to increase their economic capacities or improve quality of life. This is one sector. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Swachh Bharat. These are some of these programs that fit into which call for modification of your skills and in order to fit into these things. So that is one area where we need to stress. This is what the National Policy of Education says and is stressing. But it also says lifelong education. So the quality of the lifelong education is not for I will not use the word not for. I will say it is largely for the satisfaction of the individual's urge to either hone his own skills, hidden skills, or to satisfy the inner desires to reach out, which he to get something in terms of learning, which he or she wanted to learn. For instance, you wanted to be a good harmonium player or tabla player, but your job requirement was such that you couldn't pursue it. But after some time, when you become a senior citizen, you have the ample time and opportunity, and you can be a tabla. You want to play a tabla. Then where is the avenue? Where will you go to learn tabla? These are the centers of lifelong learning. Where you will get opportunities to provide. Now these things have come online. For instance, I came across a website, Imoha, where the senior citizens from different parts of the country have come together, and they are pursuing yoga and this at different points of time. Somebody is singing. Many people have joined singing and this, but they are retired people, and they are seeking satisfaction of their urge, and there is a platform. So this kind of platform has emerged in this pandemic, where institutional setup could not have taken place. So they found their urge, and they linked with this electronic platform. So this is the second thing. The third thing is that the national policy on education, having reiterated both these sectors, has come out with a under para 31.5, an outstanding adult education curriculum framework need to be done. Now, what is this adult education curriculum? This, I mean, it ranges right from the very beginning of basic literacy to upgradation of skill, to upgradation of one's hobbies, etc., etc. And they have been charged, the NCERT has been charged to develop this kind of program, and obviously it will have to link up with the emerging needs of the society, particularly Indian society, in terms of various programs like, let me take a very fresh example in this pandemic. Now you must be seeing lots of advertisement and this, that you have to take your vaccination, and you have to cover your mouth and with this, like this, and keep distance, keep washing. What is this? This is an impromptu program of adult education that has come to stay, and will need to be formalized. It has come up because it was the need of the time. But unfortunately, we did not get any notice for it. So what we did was that we have come up with this. And this, if this is to be institutionalized, then we have to develop some kind of program with regard to how to protect yourself from this kind of. I don't know the working group in the NCERT, what kind of shape it takes, but one has to think out of box, and this is the time when we should take cognizance of both the education as adult education for lifelong learning, and adult education for upgradation of skills. These are two sectoral areas that I am seeing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our chairperson, he has given a very good background of what the discussion will take place. Now we will initiate our, discussion. And first, we will request Professor Ravi Chandran to kindly, join and provide our your valuable input. Maybe I request all the expert Nitish to provide kindly 10 to 12 minutes so that some time is left for a discussion. So I will not take time, and straight away I will invite Professor Ravi Chandran to provide his valuable input. Thank you. Yeah.
So before inviting Professor Ravi Chandran sir, I would like to introduce him. Professor Ravi Chandran sir is a professor at Jamia Hamdard University, and he is a leading management professional with distinguished academic and research career. He has been awarded fellowship and honor by various prestigious association councils such as Science and Engineering Research Council, the Population Council, South Asian Network of Economic Research Institutions for carrying outstanding research and activities. He was conferred Asia Fellowship Award. He has done pioneering work of creating or promoting the health policy, health system, and the program. His work has been published in several national and international.
Thank you. Thank you, Nitish. Take only 3-4 minutes. Experts, you can just hand over to him. Let him give time for intro.
Now I would like to invite Professor Ravi Chandran sir for his expert comment. Please, sir, over to you.
Yeah, good evening. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes. Kindly continue, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, you are audible, sir. Kindly continue. Sir. Yeah. All the experts.
Hello.
You are audible. You are audible, sir. Is there any link problem?
I think there is problem, sir. We should move forward.
In the meantime, you can ask. What you can do, Nitish, you can invite Dr. Geeta. That she can. Yeah.
Now I would like to. I would like to invite Professor Geeta Mishra ma'am. Dr. Geeta Mishra is associated with Amity University. She is associate professor in Amity University, Noida. Her experience is in HRM, Human Resource Management. She has published several researches in national and international journals, ABDC category, and she is member of the board of governing body and the board of the studies, course review committee, departmental research committee. And she has done the several research in the field of transgender, in the field of the human resource management and other issues. She has been also visiting faculty in Australia University. Now, before handovering the mic, I would like to welcome Geeta Mishra ma'am.
Thank you.
Please, over to you.
Thank you, Nitish. So, good evening, everyone. Dr. N.K. Ambash sir, Professor Rajesh sir, Professor Ravi Chandran and sir, Professor S.Y. Shah sir, Dr. Varghese. A very good evening to everyone. And I would like to thank and congratulate Rajesh sir for choosing such an appropriate topic, interdisciplinarity in higher education, under New Education Policy 2020, role of lifelong learning. And this topic is very, very insightful and relevant, especially in today's times when we talk of this pandemic. So this pandemic has changed the entire paradigm of learning. So of course, Ambash sir has spoken about the digital platforms. And very interestingly, before I go forward, I'm reminded because sir referred about Japan, that while he was in Japan. So I was reading this book, Ikigai. And as sir was mentioning that lifelong learning, it is also about having a meaningful life. So once you retire, what are your plans and how can you engage yourself? So because sir was referring to it, and I was immediately reminded of this book referred to as Ikigai. And in Japan, they say that there is no concept of retirement. So they don't believe in the concept of retirement at all. And they say that Ikigai refers to that finding your meaning of life and the purpose of life. So I was just reminded because it is very connected with lifelong learning and adult education. So as I was referring to that this pandemic has completely changed the way we are learning and how we are conducting ourselves. So more than the cognitive abilities, our human conduct, the human values, our moral behavior, our conduct in society has become very, very important. So this pandemic has created a major disjuncture in our existence and confronted us with an experience that conflicts with our previous understanding of the world. And again, it has forced us to think and rethink that if we want to survive or if we want to sustain, learning is not constant, it is dynamic. So we have to continually engage and learn. And that is how we talk about lifelong learning. So before I go deeper into lifelong learning, so learning is all about change. And change drives learning. So I would like to make a distinction between two types of learners here: an adaptive learner who will just make incremental changes just to survive, and generative learners who are transformational learners and they believe in transformational change. So to have skills to confront and create path-breaking change. So recognizing the gaps, setting goals, establishing learning plans, and maintaining that motivation to carry out the plans even after you retire, or learning till you are there on this planet. And so as we see lifelong learning, the use of both formal and informal learning opportunities throughout somebody's life in order to foster the continuous development and improvement of knowledge. And before I move on to national education policy, I'm reminded of a very insightful video by Swamini Vimlananda ji, and she refers to in that video that in our students, we are talking about a lot of technical aspects, but we are not telling anybody, we are not telling our students how to think or even how to learn. So it is very important and imperative, especially in these times when the entire globe has been infected by this virus, that we should also know that how to learn, and are our students or are people equipped to learn to face the changes. So because I'm a faculty and I see that some of my students during this time, they came forward that ma'am, we are suffering from depression and there's a lot of anxiety happening. So it is not just about training them about technical skills or making them commerce graduates or management graduates or science graduates, but it is very, very important to prepare them that how to face the change also. And that is why the importance of what Ambash sir was also referring to, yoga, referring to recreational activities, referring to doing something which which you can do something for the community also. So during these times, many of my students have been associated with NGOs and they've been doing in their own capacities, a lot of activities for the general public at large. So maybe somebody is associated with an orphanage, somebody is associated with Blind Students Association. So in their own ways, they are trying to make a positive impact on others also, because lifelong learning is not just about career development. And that is what our National Education Policy 2020 also refers to. That's not just restricted to employment, but it is beyond employment through minor shifts and through major transitions. So it is how do we learn from our generational differences? and the value that people from different generations can contribute to each other. So the basic premise of lifelong learning is that it is not feasible to equip the learners at the school or colleges or universities with all the knowledge and skills they need to prosper throughout their lifetimes, but also to continually engage them in activities which are required for their own development and as well as the development of others who are around them. And the time when this national education policy came out is also very, very pivotal. And this national education policy 2020 is also highlighting and enumerating that it's not just the cognitive abilities that we need to develop, but time and again it is making a reference to the holistic development of people or to the holistic development of students. So it says that, more than, so 9.1.3, the paragraph in national education policy says that the purpose of quality higher education is therefore more than the creation of greater opportunities for individual employment. It represents the key to more vibrant, socially engaged, and cooperative communities and a happier, cohesive, and cultured and productive and prosperous nation. So one of the challenges which is highlighted in our national education policy also and otherwise also that we have been seeing being associated with higher education is that there is a lot of rigidity when it comes to separation of disciplines. So with very early specialization, so from 9th standard, a student is supposed to choose whether they want to go forward in commerce or in science or in arts. So the area of study becomes very, very narrow. And because the topic of today's webinar is also interdisciplinarity in higher education, how do we address that through lifelong learning? So the paragraph of 11.1 in National Education Policy again draws back from our history that we, the nation, we belong to a history of holistic and multidisciplinary learning from universities such as Takshila, Nalanda to the extensive literatures of India combining subjects across the fields. So our history also makes a note of 64 kalas or 64 arts. So where we not just talked of technical subjects, but we also refer to singing, painting, scientific fields such as chemistry, mathematics, vocational fields such as carpentry, clothes making, and professional fields such as medicine, engineering, and also soft skills such as communication, debate, discussion. So this national education policy says that, there is a need now in the 21st century also to bring back those liberal arts into our education system, into our mainstream education. And vocational studies has been looked down upon, so there is a need to integrate it with the mainstream education. And a lot of emphasis has been placed on developing the intellectual, aesthetic, emotional, and moral abilities of students in an integrated manner. And here I would also like to mention about Amity University, that we at Amity, we have been taking care of this multidisciplinarity. So in the first year when a student joins at the UG level, environmental studies is a compulsory paper. So irrespective of whether he wants to become an engineer or he wants to become a management practitioner or whether he wants to graduate in science, environmental studies, so developing that ecological responsibility that, we are not polluting our system or we are not environmentally endangering the society. So we have to study in both semester 1 and in semester 2. Also, we have this course which a student has to opt, which is referred to as Human Values Community Outreach. So in one of the semesters, every student will have to study this paper. So they have to engage themselves in any of the NGO or any area which interests them. So it could be sanitation, it could be reaching out to the rural areas of the villages, it could be reaching out to the older population, it could be reaching out to, for the menstrual hygiene of women. So it could be any area which interests them. And in that field, they have to connect and do some project with the NGO or with the industry. Then in every semester, we have this compulsory paper, communication skills, which every student has to do. Behavioral science or professional ethics. I think now this has become compulsory in all universities. So they have to do this professional ethics, communication skills, and one foreign language. So whichever foreign language they like, it could be Spanish, it could be German, it could be French. So these are some compulsory papers that irrespective of this stream that they choose, they have to go through these papers. And then And so they have to, they have to choose one domain elective. So if a student is a management graduate, he will choose any one elective from across the domain, so from management domain, irrespective of which department he's studying in. And one is an open elective, so across the university you can choose any open elective. So for example, if I'm interested in Bharatnatyam, I can opt for Bharatnatyam, and if I'm interested in painting, I can choose for painting, irrespective of whether I'm doing my MBA or my MSc or any other course like that. So this is one thing, that multidisciplinarity and the choice, the flexibility in the course curriculum is very, very important. And this education policy also makes a reference that autonomy should be given, autonomy will be given to higher education institutions in designing a flexible curriculum which offers a student a choice-based credit system where they can choose their interdisciplinary papers also. So here, if I'm a science graduate, it's very difficult to read one paper in economics. So such kind of a platform where they can also choose from amongst the basket. So a novelty in curriculum and engaging and offering different, so as Rajesh sir was also mentioning, that from specialization to a more generalization, that giving students more platform or more options to choose whatever they want to build their career in. So that is one thing. And of course, this national education policy is also placing a lot of impetus on industry internships. So at our university, doing an industry internship is compulsory. So during their summer break, they have to do, in the fourth semester, they have to do their summer internship with the company to see that, what is happening. So if they're studying human resource management, but how does it get implemented in companies? And this national education policy also says that now we are moving more into learning, just building on theoretical concepts. We're also moving towards practical application. So tomorrow, when our students go back to the industry, they are more employable. So the national education policy also makes a reference of that, providing students with opportunities for internships with local industry, businesses, artists, craft persons, as well as research internships with faculty and researchers at their own or other higher education institutions, to give them more practical side of the learning, and the byproduct would be a better and an improved employability. Then another area is multiple exit and entry points, and having an academic bank of credit, which will be established so that, the academic credits will be digitally stored and which will be recognized by education institutions, and that will be taken care of. So if a student has done a course in for 1 year, maybe in science, he will get a certification, and then maybe if he wants to do it in another, maybe does 2 years, so maybe a diploma, and 3 years and maybe a degree. So we are giving a lot of platforms to the students to choose, and even if they had to drop out, so they have multiple entry and exit points. So without taking much time, just 1 or 2 points also I would want to refer to. So as Rajesh sir was also referring to that, not just develop in students or in larger community, not just to be making them job seekers, but how they can build up their own, and create employment for others also. So start up an incubation center. So we also have an incubation center. University of Delhi also has an incubation center. So we at Amity, we are offering this incubation center, and we assist the students. So if they are making a technical business plan, we help them in improvising that business plan, and then they can probably reach out to the venture capital investors or others for funding opportunities. And we also give them the space. So if they do not have an office space, and if they are alumni, and if their business proposal has got impetus, they can use the premises and they can use the office space for working. So we do have these incubation centers, technology development centers, and frontier areas of these research centers for further collaborations, and for giving students a platform, so that instead of just seeking jobs, they can also create something of their own which they are passionate about. And all these digital platforms, as sir was also referring to, all these digital platforms, online courses are giving more and more opportunity to people to follow their passion. So I always wanted to do this classical dance, but I never got an opportunity because there were never weekend classes. But of course, with these online platforms, there are a plethora of online teachers. So if I want to do it during my work from home, this thing also, and I want to take out some time, so that opportunities are also available. So gradually we are moving towards this lifelong learning concept, that do what adds meaning to your life. And it's not just restricted to your school curriculum or to your college curriculum or to, it is lifelong, whatever passionates you and whatever you can give back to the society also. And just one last point I would want to make a reference of, which is 21.8 in National Education Policy. And they're saying that all the efforts will be undertaken to ensure the participation of community members in adult education. So social workers, counselors traveling through their communities to track and ensure participation of non-enrolled students, and dropouts will also be requested during their travels to gather data of parents, adolescents, and others interested in adult education opportunities, both as learners and as teachers or tutors. So probably we will be having that data also, that who are these dropouts and if they want to continue their education or if they want any assistance also. So these social workers, counselors will then connect with the local adult education centers to give them more opportunities. And of course, this technology will be leveraged to strengthen the space. And if people want to get themselves equipped in ICT tools, so that would also be there. Public libraries will be available. And it also makes a note of that, school and college complexes and premises can also be used after the college hours, and public library spaces can also be used for adult education courses, which will be ICT equipped when possible for larger community engagement and enrichment activities. So with this multidisciplinarity and this national education policy and lifelong learning, all this, when it comes together, it is giving us a lot of...
Thank you, Dr. Geeta. Thank you, Dr. Geeta. Please give some space for discussion also.
Sorry, sir,
so straightway, without giving more introduction, I straightway invite Dr. Gibson Burgess. So, Dr. Gibson Burgess, Nitish, one or two sentences and then invite him. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Geeta, for giving a very insightful thought on this issue. Thank you. We'll have discussion also. Yeah, Nitish. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Dr. Gibson Burgess. He is Assistant Professor in Department of Economics and St. Dominic College, Gandhi Pillai, under Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala. He is an Erasmus Mundus Scholar, and he is also visiting fellow of Institute of Lifelong Learning, University of Delhi. He is an adjunct professor under University University of Mahatma Gandhi University, Kolkata, and he has been the chief executive of CXS Solution India Private Limited, and he's also he has been also deputy head of the National Skill Development Council of India, and his area of interest and his area of work is in the field of the human resource management and adult education, rural development and decentralization. So before wasting any time, I would like to invite Professor Gibson, sir. Please hand over to you. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Nitish. Thank you. Can I show my PPT, sir?
Sure. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you are.
All right.
Yeah, kindly. Yeah.
Nitish, can you see this? Okay.
Yes, it is visual.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I go to my discussion, I would like to thank Professor Rajesh for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and respected honorable professors, faculty members, and the participants. Thank you all for joining for this wonderful webinar. Before me, professors have talked about the need of lifelong learning program and the current programs that are going on here in India. I just want to bring a little bit wider perspective on lifelong learning, that is policy and management based on a new education policy 2020. Because so far we have discussed about so many programs on lifelong learning, but in my point of view, there is a little bit practice on policy and management, especially from the government side. There is no policy formulations, particularly on lifelong learning programs. But there are so many programs, policies, and management decisions on adult education. We are all practicing that in our universities, schools, everywhere, even from the very beginning as through our different educational programs that we have so far experienced. So now I just want to bring into attention about an importance of lifelong learning policy and management. So far, we know that there is a clear-cut distinction between what we mean by education from a formal setup to lifelong learning. I think with my short span of experience, I just would like to focus more on lifelong learning, why learning has given to lifelong learning. I was fortunate to have my 13 years of work and life in Europe, and I have seen so many programs under the European Commission in the umbrella of lifelong learning. I just want to talk on the basis of that only. But in India, we have come across with all the educational program till adult education. In my point of view, we have not given more importance to the lifelong learning as such, because we are a country with a lot of population, diversity, languages, everything. That might be the reason that we have not given much importance to the lifelong learning perspective for learning aspect, educational aspect, and also work. Because in Europe, what they are practicing from the policy is that they are implementing their lifelong learning perspectives in workplaces. So that is what I just want to talk more about. And in learning, we have to. It is open and optional, because individuals can learn whatever they want, and it is optional. That is what is happening in lifelong learning programs. But right now, it becomes very important because we are being part of a global citizen, and we need a knowledge from a wider perspective. We have to be a global citizen, not with age, not with caste, not with any kind of separation. We have to be global at any time. We are already. So there comes the need of lifelong learning perspectives to our lifestyles. Just want to bring into a present scenario and the generation gap and the learning scenario to you people. Just mentioning what we have already discussed, like cloud computing, infrastructure that makes education and training very accessible to everyone. Now we are learning whatever we want. We are learning courses, online courses. We are attending several programs throughout the world. We are learning programs or master's degree programs from Oxford universities, or even from any university from India, like that. We have also YouTube and online training materials that help us more quickly to understand how all these frameworks work. So we have infrastructure and facilities. And I think of a motivated high school student who could solve the same problems that we are learning right now with a weekend span. It is now have become, with all these facilities, a student. I just called high school student, but all students are also now able to make whatever things that they want in a weekend time. Whereas we people, a little bit elderly people or aged people, after graduation, we took a lot of years to understand and build up our formation. They can do it within span of time, within 1 week. What it shows? It shows the democratization of education and learning. Learning has become wider. Anyone from any point of time, anywhere can learn whatever they want. These indications show that how far the knowledge and skills have already become democratized. I just want to pinpoint there that we have to democratize learning and make it wider for every people at any time. We have to provide access, we have to provide infrastructure. These growth trajectories indicate the fact that they are going to become further democratized over the next handful of years. Within a short span of time, maybe it's because of Corona or pandemic situation that we have learned a lot, but I am damn sure within a short span of time, our society will be changed. Now we call the society 5.0. Earlier it was called for society 4.0, industry 4.0. Now it is becoming society 5.0. So time are going so fastly that we have to be equipped. So lifelong learning it's a must. It becomes an important thing. Just to share with you some of the things that we were doing, comparing pre and post COVID. We are learning. We were used to say we are learning, but the situation has made us to say that we have to learn. We have to learn, because the pandemic and the lockdown forced us to be independent in this digital world. Every person has to learn from anywhere, whatever they want to become independent, irrespective of age. All have to learn. Some of the things that we were doing in pre-COVID scenario, we were learning to learn courses, learning to live economically and financially safe person and lead a family life. We have learned to buy goods and services, mostly depending on digital platforms. We have learned to organize our life with better healthcare, checkups, and vaccinations, and learning to be connected with the whole world. We are learning every day, every time, because of the pandemic situation or vice versa. We are learning. A year before, if we look to the post-corona situation, we were doing only one or two things from the above list. But today, all of us can do all these things within a limited time. Who taught us? Maybe time. But we used to learn our skills and capacities because of the necessity. Necessity has come due to the pandemic situation. But there is an inner capacity, inner skill that we had already. And the situation made us to, or forced us to learn quickly and adapt to the changes. So when we think about the situation like pandemic, although it was seriously affected people and society, economy, everywhere, we saw that we can overcome by this difficulty by learning anything at any time, because we are fighting against this pandemic mainly through learning. Irrespective of age, everyone in the world, especially in India, I would like to say that in the educational system, we are learning to face the challenges that we are confronted to through pandemic situations. So we have to give a little bit of power in learning, and there comes the role of lifelong learning. That's where I want to bring policy changes to the lifelong learning programs, because lifelong learning as an integral part of economic and social policies, we have to empower through giving access to knowledge throughout the lifespan for an individual's perspective. We have to open our educational system from an institutional point of view, like what Professor Rajesh is doing from the Department of University of Delhi. All universities should come to talk about the lifelong learning activities. Then only policymakers will listen to it. Now is a high time to bring to that scenario, and it's a great achievement on the part of University of Delhi. So these kind of things have to come in front. And just based on the National Education Policy 2020, I would like to just pinpoint two or three important points where we can do our lifelong learning programs in a better way. I urge all the faculty members and the policymakers to build a network of universities, your research institutes, together to give programs to whoever want to learn from anywhere. And there should be a program between the universities or research institutes or educational institutions to have a mutual recognition of diplomas for learners. Thereby, anyone from anywhere can learn anything that they want from any university or college. So that when there is a mutual recognition of diplomas or degree programs, anyone will be motivated to learn whatever they want. And not the least, as a third point, I just want to bring into the perspective that we have to provide a national student card and accessibility. It is not only for the, so far we have in our colleges and universities, we have a student card up to the degree that we are completing. From that, we are just professionals, we are just aged people. It seems like that. But we have to change that scenario. We have to consider everyone as a learner, and accessibility to the educational institutions or research institutions should be given to all those who want to learn. So by these programs, I hope that according to the National Education Policy, interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity programs can be brought down to all those who want and to all institutes. And also we need to ensure a transparency of qualifications. We have to recognize everyone, not only students or educators who are in the current program, but we have to recognize workers. If they are learning something for their work, we have to recognize, we have to give them a transparent qualification, and we have to acknowledge their learning. Thereby, we can bring up this lifelong learning perspective into a wider spectrum. Promotion of new basic skills or vocational skills to become a global citizen. Everywhere we can compete, and there is a multiple opportunities for everyone to compete, but we have to give basic skills. Earlier we were used to say basic arithmetic or communication skills are so far necessary, but no, everyone have that skill so far, but we need to give more importance to some more skills upgradation, vocational education, and work-based learning. And also to support these lifelong learning programs to become a more wider perspective, we have to develop local level entities, local level learning spaces to the society. Thereby, everyone can get together rather than waiting for the university or colleges or schools to recognize them. They can go and do whatever they want. They can learn together or do together and live a better life. I think with this, I end up my suggestions to the lifelong learning programs.
Thank you so much.
Now,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your insights. Now,
You can start Nitish, interaction. You can start now.
now I would like to invite Ravi Chandran sir. As I have already told you that Ravi Chandran sir is professor in Jamia Hamdard University, and he will present. I have already introduced about Ravi Chandran sir. So please, Ravi Chandran sir, over to you. Please unmute, sir. Please unmute first. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Please continue.
Error. Yeah.
No, please continue, sir.
Yeah. See, as you know, my previous co-panelist had detailed outline about what is the national education policy and how it is going to function. But after listening to them, I thought of changing my discourse to behave as a devil's advocate here. I hope it will be permissible to the chair. So I'd be talking in terms of how to teach. No, we talked about functionalities. I mean, the fundamental phenomena of the national education policy have been outlined, and how to deal with that have been discussed by co-panelists. But I will be discussing the challenges and the constraints that comes through the lifelong learning. As you know, life itself has no meaning than where the learning comes through. So here, the national education policy giving an opportunity for creating a meaning to that. It comes through in terms of facilitating inclusiveness, participatory, and holistic manner of implementations, while looking at larger emphasis given on practical and experiential learning in the national education policy. But the question arises, is there any need for reaffirmation in terms of bridging the social gaps that particularly marginalized section or other weaker section of the population? We all know that for national education policy to be in, there is a need for tectonic shift in the pedagogical structure. Today we are talking about interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. It is there already in the name of choice-based curriculum system. We have already CBSE. What happened to that? How far it has been successful? How much it succeeded? Say, for example, my one of the panelists was talking about introducing the liberal arts. Say, Jamia Amdad is mostly on health or medical education oriented. If one of the student or a couple of students wanted to opt liberal arts, where do they go? Or who will pay for that? Here, policy is addressing very overly optimistic. Of course, I do agree it is a very progressive shift towards more scientific approach. At the same time, it talking about from the early cognitive development to involving social and physical societal level, local level awareness. But we all know sun rises everywhere, but crops grows only where farmers put very hard work. Or our teachers are well equipped to do this kind of job orientations. Lifelong learning require more of integrated technology with more of computational digital literacy, with more focus on scientific temperament. Do we talking about vocational program in this form or talking about skill orientations? Am I going to say, for example, being a political science student, if I opt couple of papers or a couple of subjects in the various domain, is it going to give me any additional value? Okay, it may be self-satisfactory in terms of learning or understanding the particular topic. Am I going to be expert or I am going to be made as a supplementary one? If it is so what happened to the stakeholders? Like the person who is willing to or aspire to specialize in the political science and became a political scientist or economist, studying few papers or getting supplemented may be satisfactory, will lead to me gaining a gainful economic gains or orientations. So that means there is a disposed governance in the entire policy. But this cannot happen. Like, we need to have a good amount of funding and we need to have political will to do that. I just put a story here. You might be heard about this story. There are two young guys wanted to venture out the nearby jungle area, planning to take a whole course on weekend. So they prepared their jeep safari and kept all the safety measures on board. And they traveled, drove through almost 6 to 7 kilometers inside of the jungle. They noticed they could not find any wild animals on the path. Then after 6, 7 kilometers, they thought, okay, it's enough. So we can get down and coolly walk down to find and get a fresh air. Then after landing and walk for say half a kilometer inside the jungle without jeep or without any safety measures, they found there are many wild animals surrounded them. Now, can these guys can say that, yes, I have pistol in my jeep, I have all the safety measures in my jeep, but don't come nearby. Will the wild animal understand? So similarly, we're talking about the national education policy with interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, with focusing on pedagogical structure. And who would deliver it? The current existing faculty have the skill to deliver it? No. Or how these faculty members are going to be trained? So what would be the standard of measures to work on? That's why this policy, yes, my panelists kept on saying this required little more acceleration. But in reality, the policy itself assumed that it will fulfill in 2040. It will be another 20 more years to go to get settled down. So that means we know the weakness of the system, education system, which is more corrupt compared to any other departments in the country. But we are not ready for that. For example, for interdisciplinary approach, this policy talks about learning at the local cultures, societal norms, and understanding it and imbibing into the day-to-day activities. Being any individual willing to learn about, say, what is happening in London, what is happening in Tokyo, but not ready to learn what is happening in Malvinagar in Delhi or in Kottakkal of Kerala, whatever. So we are not ready for localization, then we are talking about interdisciplinary. So when I say somebody is willing to do that interdisciplinary approach or multidisciplinary way of looking at, how he is going to gain? Are we looking at only the certifications or what kind of value orientation he is going to have? After the implementation of the National Education Policy since April 2020, we have been talking about human value systems. What value are we talking about? What value orientation that lead for a lifelong learning? So there is, lack of coordinations with the industry and as well as the existing pedagogical structure.
Well, I think you should confine to the policy and relate to lifelong learning and adult education sector. Because time is very short. I would have loved to hear you for a longer period of time, but we must give some time to the people who are listening to us patiently, not having an opportunity of questioning. So would you kindly be brief enough? Thank you.
Yeah. So looking at that, the lifelong learning require more entrepreneurial oriented approach rather than going for a curriculum or systemic approaches. Say where you need to have more of industry orientations or more of imbibing knowledge through the societal approach where community stakeholders coming and play, then giving a value addition to the entire process. So in this process, we like to look at the mechanism that can provide to strengthening the adult education or lifelong learning. In addition to that, while you're talking about lifelong learning, it's not the only the particular section of the population that is going to be benefited or providing such a training orientations. So we look at the university systems that require to be geared up and require to change the entire process mechanisms for bringing the knowledge towards lifelong learning, not just in the curriculum orientations. So at the same time, democratization of knowledge and availability of the technology give much more value orientation in the process of value addition for the youth that's going to be part of the lifelong learning. Many of times we could see that very few universities or institutions having this department or subject as a separate vertical. So they should come together and put a concrete structure what kind of pedagogical structure, what type of entrepreneurial, what I could say is technical orientation required, that should be part of the learning. So that will help the entire learning process. So with that, so we need to look for, though system is very wildly uneven, there is a need for attending the basics of teaching, inflationary grading and required adequate infrastructure, and removing the outdated curriculum for the individual who aspire to have. So there is a need for value addition and provide the meaningful learning. So with that,
thank you, sir. Thank you for putting forward your point of view. With the permission of chair, we can have some quick interaction on the very important, new education policy, first in the 21st century, and where it is said that it will be learner-centric, student-centric, not teacher or curriculum-centric. So how it will be done, what will be the multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary role that we have discussed, 1.5 an hour. So if we have quick, some interaction with the permission of chair, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. One thing I must make it clear, that one must understand the difference between pedagogy and andragogy. And many of us in the university system resort to using the pedagogical approaches and without any consideration for the learner's maturity level. And therefore, in the emerging situations, maybe that andragogical training must be made compulsory for every teacher, whether he is history teacher or English teacher, must be made compulsory to make them aware how that the way the adults learn is very different from the way the child learns. One small point: the child's natural style of learning is by process of imitation, whereas when he grows up, the suggestion comes into play. So andragogical approach is basically not on imitation but suggestion. This kind of approach is not available, or not, I would say, is not deliberately available. Deliberately, I underline, in the methods that a law teacher teaches, or a physics teacher teaches, or a chemistry teacher teaches, or even the adult educators like us. So there must be, in the university sector, there must be a kind of movement or a kind of a crusade to orient the teachers of the university system in andragogical methods. That's one. The second point I would like to say, I would invite people to react to it, that the time is ripe for us to come up with the concrete plans, and therefore those who have any ideas with regard to concretization of the implementation of the adult education program should write to the director NCERT about their suggestion with regard to how to implement the policy. With that, I throw it open for anybody, any of the participants, to ask questions or to make a brief comment, very, very brief comment. 2, 3 we will be able to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody want to ask any question, please put forward and mute yourself. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, hello sir. This is Kumar Gaurav, a research scholar from the same adult
Yeah.
education department.
Yes, Kumar. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, I have a question that what are the challenges that the tutor are going to face with this multidisciplinary approach in the future?
You are addressing to nobody, no? You are addressing a general kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have the question for NK sir.
Okay.
NK
Okay.
Ambut sir.
Acha, you are having the question with the chairman himself about the challenges of the implementation pertaining to this,
Yeah,
new education policy.
challenges that the tutor or the professor in higher education going to face with this multidisciplinary approach with its initiation at the next or the same year.
Sir, you are unmute, sir.
Yeah, I'm not able to get his question. Rajesh, can you repeat it?
Sir, he is telling that what are the challenges of implementing it, especially the higher education. So, the area that Professor Ravi Chandran was hinting towards, that it is there. But what are the challenges? He must be asking, sir, challenges before the teacher, challenges before the curriculum, challenges before the system, how to make it infrastructure, digital kind of a thing. So such issue he is asking, sir. Yeah.
Very good question. And it is very relevant to you, Dr. Rajesh.
Yeah, right, sir.
Can you think of some kind of subject-free, methodology-oriented program of how to make adults learn? That means that every university teacher is undergoing some kind of training in andragogy, and that training may be online, that training may be through video conferencing. But I am sure that a physics or a mathematics teacher does not know the learning style of an adult. He teaches the way he has been taught and transfers it from generation to generation. When you have a training program of primary school teacher, a training program of secondary school teacher, you don't have a training program for any university teacher. So you are saying that, in a way, that knowing the subject body of the subject is enough for its transference to another person. But how to transfer is missing. It is taken for granted that the teacher will be able to communicate, to transfer the knowledge to the learner. But the methodology of how to learn and how adults learn, how it is different from a child's learning style. So this kind of thing, I think that there is a very strong possibility for you to develop some kind of program to I would say, empower the teachers of the university level in that in teaching the adult population, right?
Sir, you have hinted a very important area, and you have also given a very important challenge for me. And I will have quickly only one sentence that what you are talking, Professor Dinesh Singh used to talk to every time the same thing, that you do not talk adult education only for yourself. As you said, sir, you also talk adult education for mathematics and physics teachers. That is what you hinted towards, sir, that andragogy, because that is very important, needed kind of a thing, because we teacher understand, we professor understand. I may be excused that perhaps we are very much sensitized or very much knowledgeable how, as an adult educator, what is our role and responsibility, and what is the methodology you are hinting, and the difference between pedagogy and andragogy, sir. I am not generalizing, but it is a very important area where online and offline in higher education needed, sir. And I will try to do something. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Anything quickly? Yeah. Anyone having any? Yeah.
Anyone want to ask?
Yes, sir. If I may, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yeah, Len.
Yes,
First,
sir.
you introduce yourself, and then quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Myself, Lane, from Adult Education Department, pursuing PhD under Professor Rajesh. Today's session, I was very so glad about the resource person who was bringing out insightful thoughts and inspiration where foundational for lifelong learning can be laid out. So my regards and appreciation to all the resource person. Coming to Derek, I wish to ask. This is a common question for all. Since the adult education, since lifelong learning is, since in its topic is lifelong learning according to NEP 2020, I find myself the paper as interdisciplinary. So since the paper is interdisciplinary, uh, since my experience from master, there is lack of, we tend to focus on, as far as the paper lifelong learning is concerned, we tend to focus more on vocationalization, vocational base or knowledge base. So my question to all the resource person is, since from my experience, this is something that really matters, is we tend to forget about the foundational areas, the theories, the concepts and the meanings of what exactly is lifelong learning. So, as long as the theoretical or the foundational base is not uh, highlighted or properly bring into the domain, all the learners are confused when it comes to what exactly lifelong learning. The terms and concept meaning should be given importance. So, uh, since the paper is interdisciplinary, what exactly are the curriculum can be come into the domain? So, this is my question to all the research person. Yeah, thank you.
Rajesh, would you like to answer?
I thought that you will say something, sir.
Well, I tell you, in the lifelong learning concept, the urge to learn is taken for granted because the learner wants to learn. It is different from school education where you want to make children learn. Understand? So when there is a motivation from inner motivation from the adults to learn, then there are certain things that make change. The authoritarian or compulsive nature of pedagogy is absent in andragogy. So the approach in andragogy is learning together. The teacher as well as the learner are equal partners in the quest for learning. And even if the teacher knows the content, he should pose as if he is discovering knowledge along with the learners. Because the adult will not take what the teacher says as an absolute truth, which is contrary to what is happening in the school. There the teacher is infallible. There the learner says that the teacher, since teacher has said this is right, you can experiment it with your child. If you have a child of 5 age, just tell her that your teacher has told you wrong and see the reaction. But when you reach college level, you can question your teacher. So the approach in one sentence that in the pedagogy, in the andragogical system, the teacher should have an approach of learning together as if he is discovering knowledge along with the learners. So this is the basic difference. And if you can, I don't know whether I have answered your question or not, or I have clarified your doubts or not. But
Yes,
I think
sir.
this is the basic difference.
Yes, sir. My question was, since the lifelong learning focus more on interdisciplinary, so what are the mainstream that can come into lifelong learning curriculums in higher education. So we morely focus on vocationalization or the job oriented. So my inputs was foundational areas of theories and meaning concepts should not be ignored. Yeah, that was my point of argument, sir. Thank
You
you.
see, no, is that the
Rajesh ji,
that-
Right, sir. Sir,
yeah,
you,
I try to understand where Leon come from.
yeah.
So I just give one example, like, when I go to the classroom to teach a student, like who just enrolled for a postgraduate, I teach them only theory and its related applications and how to conduct. But when I do it in the same thing in the people, particularly from industry, who wanted to have a training on the particular topic, like strategic planning or strategic management or project management, which I teach in the classroom, but I teach them in the like what the teacher does in this classroom. But when I get into the this kind of training mode, is entirely different ball game. Teaching and training two different ball game. For adult, they require kind of instill training. For example, they know the theory, they understand what is happening in the society. So we cannot uh, fool them. What they look for is they know the theory, they know the problem, and they know the solution also. So there is a thin line, the barriers comes in between. So they wanted to know the what is the theoretical underpinning, the perspectives evolving them. So that's where the interdisciplinary comes. That means he knows the knowledge, he has the desire to do it, but he lacks the skill to how to do it. So that's where he comes. That is where you bring the new inputs of the interdisciplinary concept as a pedagogy. There you can give inputs to change his behavior, attitudes toward the particular goal. That is called outcome based. That's what the NAP focuses on.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Ravi Chandran. When we ask about learning lane, we talk about 4 types of, learning, as you know, UNESCO. And the first thing happens, learning to know. So knowledge remains a very, very important kind of a thing. And learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together, all are later. But first and foremost thing is learning to know. But what I understand, Len, that our system remained, a kind of a knowledge and skill or vocational opportunity remain diverse. That means vocational a different stream, theory knowledge a different stream. Whether the new education policy provides the opportunity to merge, these, knowledge kind of a thing also, and providing them skill and vocational opportunity. A very quick question I will just say, Professor Ambast is also here, that how many percentage of us in higher education go for teaching and research? Is it 2%? Is it 3%? Is it 4% or 5%? 85%, where do they go? And have we asked the 85 or whatever the percentage, what they wish to learn from higher education? Sometimes it is said that you are in the law faculty, and once you go to the court, you do not know that what theory you have learned here and what practice is gone there. Whether our policy allow us to merge the theory and practice, because we have to make the system not teacher-centric, learner-centric. Whether it will happen the learner-centric through this new education policy, that becomes a very, very important issue that Professor Ambast and Professor Ravi Chandran try to explain. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anybody else? Any intervention? I think, Nitish, we are running short of time. This is why I think it has become a very... the last part has become more interesting, you see.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
once we should have... Sia, you wish to ask something. Yeah, Sia. Yeah, good evening.
Sir, I want to ask that how this new education policy is helpful in increasing the literacy rate in the rural part of India.
I think, again, I will hand it over to the chairperson.
Well, you see, the literacy is changing fast. The digital literacy is taking over, and the written and reading part is comparatively, I stress this word, comparatively getting a downgrade, because you are able to reach through pictures and through voice and communicate what you want to say. So the literacy is slowly and gradually being replaced by digital literacy. Now, I don't say that reading and writing will not be a part of it, but their contribution in educational process, particularly of adult education, will be not that strong that everything is through written communication. For example, let us take, you make a film on improved farming or use of seeds. Now, this can be communicated through a film on digital media, and every nuances, every small things is depicted. Now, it is available to the farmer, and then he can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it to see if he has got some doubts. So, earlier material that IARI, Department of Agriculture Extension, was producing in the form of print is being replaced by this film or by the Kisan portal. The best way to see what is going to happen is go to Kisan portal, because largely in Indian context, the farmer is relatively illiterate. I will not say totally illiterate. He is illiterate in terms of deciphering their print material. Now you are helping it with a digital material, you are helping with the audio-visual material. He knows much more by practice, but all that he needs is to improve that. So therefore, the formal reading, writing is getting, into background. That too, because reading, writing is subject to the language that you are talking or the script that you are referring to. The most, glaring experience I had, that having traveled all over the world, when I was in Japan for some time, I found myself totally illiterate. I couldn't read even bus signs. There was very small English somewhere written, the destination of that. So the literacy component is contextual with regard to what language you are using and what kind of script you have been used to. Now, with opening of the borders and information that you are getting is from diverse sources, you have devised a method which is called digital platform, on which you are sending visuals and on which you are communicating. Now, communicating, where the background, the language may be a barrier, but visuals are certainly a help. So these are the kind of emerging situations. I'm not saying that this is the answer to it, but the trend is that after some time, what is happening in Germany and what is being taught in German is communicated to us by activity method through audiovisual materials. We would be able to decipher, at least if not totally understand, decipher what is happening and how it is being done. So that is the kind of emerging scenario. I don't know. I have answered the question, but this is the kind of situation that we are going to come in the next few years. By say like 2050, you will have materials Japanese materials rendered into your own language with visuals from there. I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know
yes,
whether I
sir.
have answered that question, but I have tried to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Ambas, sir. Anyone would like to ask any question? Please
Yeah,
comment.
this side again, Kumar Gaurav. I would like to ask a question to Dixon Varghese, sir.
Are you not overshooting your time? I thought it was at 5:30.
Yeah, it was 5:30.
Sir,
because
now
I
we'll
thought
just
that,
wind up.
Then
Now we'll just
I would
wind
like
up,
to
sir.
put my question.
we are
Just wind up. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Last question you can ask, I hope.
Yeah, my question is to Dixon Varghese, sir, that are we trying to move from a specialized course to a generalized course with
Hello.
this multidisciplinary approach? Hello, sir, are
Can
you
you?
there?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here. Can you ask again?
Yeah.
Are we going
My
to?
question is that with a multidisciplinary approach, are we trying to move from a specialization to generalization?
No. There is nothing with regard to that. But when we come to the policy making, of course, national policy on education 2020, it brings us a scenario where we can learn anything that we want. For example, as Ambassador saying, language has not become a barrier right now. If we would like to go to Japan or any country in the world, we have the digital platform to lead us. We can learn whatever we want. So that is not the interdisciplinarity in lifelong learning. It is an opportunity rather for learners to learn whatever they want.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Nitish, you can just excuse, I think.
Yeah.
And you can just provide vote
Yeah,
of thanks,
exactly.
I hope.
So thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you
I
very much.
would like to extend my gratitude to N.K. Ambas, sir, and Professor Ravichandran, sir, Professor Geeta Mishra, Professor Gibson Varghese, sir, for valuable insights in the field of lifelong learning. And I hope that it will continue in the future, because the interdisciplinarity is the core agenda of the lifelong learning. If you want to introduce the lifelong learning in university system, then the lifelong learning is the core agenda that has to be implemented in the new education policy. So thank you so much for providing the insights. And I would also like to extend the gratitude to Professor S.Y. Sasser, who had joined. He is also the veteran in the field of adult education and lifelong learning. And the several head of also joined in this webinar. So I'd also like to extend the gratitude on the behalf of the Department of Adult Continuing Education Extension, University of Delhi. And last, I would also like to extend and send my gratitude to all the participants who had joined in this vibrant webinar. I hope you would have find some kind of solution of your questions. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much, sir. And I also like to thank at last to our department Professor Rajesh, sir, who is also a very vibrant leader and always pushing all the scholars and academicians to work in the field of the lifelong learning and adult education. So thank you so much, sir, again for such a vibrant leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitish Rameswar, our honorable chairperson, and experts who have joined here. And we have not taken too much time for this, and we hope that in course of time more opportunity will come, and it is a challenge that how to implement this, and in future we will remain in touch. Sir, thank you. Thanks a lot. It's a very good opportunity. We'll come back to thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
so much, sir. Thank you.
Nitish and Rameshwar, for providing the help today. Yeah, thank you.